Hello and welcome to A Gypsy's Kiss, the vlog. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Eunice. Stick with us a couple of seconds and we will tell you everything that we know about surveying.
And we're back. So we had a false start. That's why we're a little late. But we're here now.
I'm sure the folks on Facebook got a big kick out of seeing us.
1 o'clock Mountain Daylight Time is different now, so an hour different. So hopefully everybody's catching up with us. And we have Men in the Barn and Eric Schmidt and Rick Plank here already. So we know that some of you have got our notifications and we'll just be waiting for the room to fill up. But let's get started.
All right, so what we're going to be talking about today is the relationship between what we think of as the poem and surveying. And I'm going to tell you a little story about how I got this far. I was doing some research last week and saw some touch points that helped me to make those connections. So I want to talk about them today. But before that,
let's do some housekeeping. Thank you to our moderators. Today, so far, we have Man in the Barn and Jimmy Fast, and perhaps Joel Lewicki will show up soon as well. Thank you, gentlemen, and once again for being here today with us to keep our chat on the straight and narrow.
We appreciate you being here. Thank you very much for doing that for us.
Mm-hmm. Today's presentation will be followed by an open Q&A.
Yeah, let's make it open. I mean, I think there'll be a lot of questions related to the subject matter today, but I think we can make it open and just keep it active. So, and we don't have any schedule, anything after this?
Nope, just our usual.
Oh, okay. All right. So we can keep it open for a while.
That's right.
So,
moving ahead. Tomorrow, 1 p.m., Wednesday, March 14th, special edition of Liability of the Treasure Finder. Let's hear about that.
Okay. So first of all, I wanted to thank Jimmy Fast for causing me to think about this as an opportunity because he brought up some really, really good points about the comment that I made. In last week's Just the Facts, the question that you asked me was, how will we know when the treasure's been found? And I expressed my opinion on that matter. And then I expressed an additional opinion about what I thought the liability of a treasure finder who did not announce the find might expect. And that created, I call it a firestorm. It probably wasn't a firestorm, but that created a lot of conversation in the comments below that chat. And I thought, well, you know what? I've been saying that for years. I have spoken to a lawyer, but didn't get clarity on the subject. And so I thought, let's talk about it. And with any luck, if you happen to know an attorney who specializes in liability law, invite them to the conversation. Maybe we can get clarifications. I have reached out to a couple of friends who are attorneys and asked them. They are criminal law attorneys, and they take on defendants. So
we need to turn our volume up a little bit, Eric says.
All right, hang on. Let me move this over so I can see the monitor. Talk to me. Let me see if you're...
Hello and welcome. And we have just received $20 from Virgil Kane. Thank you,
Hey, Virgil Kane, thank you very much. Make sure you ask a question before the day is out. All right, Eric, let us know if that's loud enough. I've pushed it so that it looks normal on my screen, but I can't tell how it's getting out there. So just let me know. I'm starting to hear it in the background. So I don't want... The other thing that I don't want to do is I don't want to make an echo for us.
Weird echo thing.
Yeah. So anyway, back to what we were talking about. So tomorrow at 1 p.m., I'm going to open up the live stream for about an hour, and I'd like to talk about this. And I'd like everybody to come in, express their opinions. I'm not sure that we can get to an endpoint without having an attorney that specializes in this kind of law. But at least we can talk about it. And I think it sets a precedent for us when we do find, I don't want to call it conflict, but when we find differences of opinion on these matters, maybe we can actually debate the specific opinion. So that's what I'm trying to do with tomorrow.
All right. Tomorrow evening at 7 p.m., we have a panel discussion with Cynthia Meacham as our special guest, and we'll be talking about The Blaze.
Cynthia, we called her a couple of weeks ago because we knew she was being very active and she just established her own blog. And so we called her and asked her if she'd be interested in appearing on the program. Now, I had promised you that we would have 4 panel members. Unfortunately, I found out since I made that announcement that Sean Donson won't be able to join us. He lives up in northwestern New Mexico, and they had a plant closing in a town other than his, so he's going to be tied up with that from the 12th through the 22nd. So he will not be joining us. Mike Cowling will be joining us for it, and I have a special surprise guest that I'll be able to introduce you to tomorrow night.
And 1 p.m. on Thursday, March 15th, we'll have the Forrest Fenn Memoirs Book Club, The Thrill of the Chase, Chapter 6, My Spanish Toy Factory. We'll be covering that chapter and giving our analysis.
And as I said in my intro, this chapter is intriguing because it's only 2 pages long. And actually, like I said, it's 2 book pages long. It's probably a single typewritten page, but I think it has some information that's important. And I think it reinforces things that we've learned in other chapters. I'm sure eventually we'll get to that chapter entitled My War for Me, which is a big chapter, takes up the biggest chapter, takes up 20% of the book. And I think what we're going to have to do when we get to that point is probably break it up into sections and do it over several episodes of the show. So let's get on to this whole surveying thing. And let me tell you how I got there. Back in 2013, I discovered the blog called Mountain Walk, written by Richard Saunier. I don't believe he pronounces it in the French. Saunier is a native Southern Coloradoan, Northern New Mexican, as he describes himself. I've put the link to his website down below, and I strongly recommend that you go visit his website if you haven't already and read some of the material that he's written. He started writing in 2011, and it was very specifically written as a result of his interest in the Forrest Fenn treasure. I believe that he and Forrest actually communicated with one another because I remember Forrest making a comment about how much he appreciated his writing skills, and he really is an excellent writer, one of the best natural writers. He's not a writer by trade. He's a specialist in forestry. Spent most of his life and raised his family in South America. Read his biography. I won't go through it. He's got a really interesting biography. So he was writing this mountain walk. I was going through it. He would write these long, very deep, if you will, blog posts. But you had a sense he had a real handle on how this was all going to go. And like I said, I know Forrest thought very highly of him because I heard him speak of him at least once, maybe more than once, and he always spoke of him in a very appreciative, respectful way. So if nothing else, go read his blog. Well, last week I was doing some research on an upcoming show that we have regarding the comment on 8.25 miles. So as usual, I wanted to go find the source for that comment, and that comment or that Fenn note is actually a comment that was made on a posting on Saunier's blog that was made April 16th, 2012. And there's a comment below that has the 66,000 links Forrest Fenn quote. Now, we're going to be talking about that next week because we think it needs to be talked about, but I don't want to give away anything right now. Anyway, so as I was going through the post, I noticed the title of the post is Forrest Fenn, Land Surveyor. I've put the link to that particular post down in the description box below so you guys can go and read it yourselves. But he makes reference to the idea that Fenn might have an understanding of land surveying based on things that are called meets and bounds. And we're not going to do a meets and bounds class here. And as a reference, he uses a section from a biography of Osborne Russell. And in that biography, there's a note that Osborne Russell had actually established his own piece of land. Owners owned a piece of land based on his surveying of that land. And the description of that Osborne Russell property is written in this blog post. And I'm going to read it to you just because I thought it was interesting for a variety of reasons that I thought were interesting. And maybe you'll feel the same way. So I'm going to have to look at the screen to do this. This is the Osborne Russell land claim that was made, that was, what do they call it when they take it to the county courthouse? That was, there's a word for this. Somebody tell me what this word is when you go and you give your land claim to the people at the county courthouse so they know that it's your claim.
Registered?
Submitted, something like, maybe it is registered, something like that. That doesn't sound right. I'm sorry.
Well, Eric Schmidt, can you give us a hand?
So I'm going to go ahead and read it. You'll see it on the screen. Situate and beginning at the fir tree, 3 feet in diameter, standing 800 yards southwest of the falls of the north branch of the Luka-Mayute River, and blazed, meaning the tree was marked with a blaze, on the north and east sides. That means there's 2 blaze marks on this tree, one on the north side of the tree and one on the east side. Thence, and thence is an important word in land claims because it means what it continues, what it follows. Crossing, and thence running north 600 yards to the stream, thence crossing the stream and running north 1,130 yards to 3 oaks, each 6 inches in diameter, 6 inches diam, and he abbreviates, standing together on the side of a mountain, one blazed on the south and another blazed on the east side. Thence running nearly east 1 mile to an oak tree 2 feet in diam, blazed on the west and south sides, standing on a high ridge. Thence south 1,200 yards back to the stream, then crossing the stream and running nearly south 560 yards to an oak tree 12 inches diam, standing on the side of the ridge and blazed on the north and west sides, that oak tree. Thence west to the place of beginning. So when Osborne Russell wrote this, I'm assuming that he probably surveyed it himself, since he had survey experience. He knew how to describe a land claim, and as a result, he used verbiage in this claim that is common today. So I went and found a modern land, what they call legal description of real property. Oops, I'm going to go first. What I wanted to do was talk a little bit about, if you were to sketch this out, and this is a very rough sketch of Osborne Russell's claim. You can see it starts at the waterfalls, goes to the fir tree, crosses the creek, goes to an oak tree, then west to another oak tree, south again, crossing the creek to another oak tree, and back to the starting fir tree. Now, each of these locations has a purpose in a land claim. Let me describe them to you. So this location, the waterfalls, is the point of commencement. And you have to have a starting point whenever you do a land claim. It could be another, a physical object like these waterfalls, or it could be another marker of some kind that had been placed by the federal government. Now, the federal government has a kind of different way, but a universally accepted one, of describing land, and they call it the geographic grid system. And the grid system divides the United States into what are referred to as townships, which are 36 miles square, and then 6 miles up and 6 miles down. And then each one of those squares is subdivided again down 4 times over each time. So eventually you can find a point on that square as a starting point, and they've all been marked in the United States with various markers. So you can always find a starting point using the grid system. Now, when he did this in 1845, the grid system hadn't migrated this far west. So he had to use something that he expected was going to be there for a reasonable length of time, in this case, the waterfall. Now, he went from there to the first fir tree. So the waterfall is referred to as the POC, or point of commencement. He went from there and he measured to what is referred to as the point of beginning. The point of beginning is where the definition, your legal definition of your land claim starts. And they all have those. They all have those definitions of point of beginning. Then he goes off in a particular direction and distance. In this case, the direction was north. He crosses the stream and he goes to a fir tree. Now, another name, and the surveyor's name and the legal name for this fir tree is called a monument. And in just a moment, I'm going to show you examples of other monuments. So,
Isn't that an oak tree?
I'm sorry. You're right. It is an oak tree. It did go to an oak tree. I even made the picture of it.
Yeah.
So this oak tree for him was a monument. Now I'm going to show you in just a couple of minutes some examples of other kinds of monuments. Then he went west to another oak tree. I almost said another fir tree. Well, it's not, is it? Then from there he went south for about the same distance that he went north, crosses the same creek again, and then goes to another fir tree.
Oh.
And dang nabbit. And then back to his point of beginning, which is a fir tree.
Yes.
So he defined his plot of land, but he did it using some things that are common tools, surveyors' tools, when they write the descriptions, not draw the well, they use it when they draw the diagram, but when they write the descriptions of these things. And I started thinking, well, there's some of these features, if you will, aside from the fact that he used blazed over and over again. And, when we go back, let me go back to the, he uses his point of commencement as a waterfall. Then he blazes all the dang trees. He crosses a stream, and then goes back to his beginning. So the difference between what we find in a land claim, the legal description of a land claim, is that it closes. It's a closed space, a closed two-dimensional space, and on a map, of course. And it always returns to the point of beginning. Otherwise, it's not a legal land claim. Now, it may coincide that your point of commencement and your point of beginning are exactly the same thing. So if you start in an easily identifiable benchmark at the corner of one of the U.S. grid system, then your point of commencement and the point of beginning are going to be exactly the same. And they'll say that. The point of commencement is at the point of beginning, and then you start describing distances and directions from there. Now, when a surveyor uses this terminology, they call them meets and bounds, and the meets are the numbers, the distance and directions. The bounds are what you run into, assuming that there are other people's property that you're going to be coordinating with. So one of your meets could be running 1,100 feet to the eastern boundary of Adam Smith's property, and thence from there to another location. So those are the bounds when they refer to the bounds. But this is a very common way to use this language. So I went and looked for a contemporary legal description of land, and you can see that they use almost the same verbiage. Commence, meaning the point of commencement, at the northeast corner of the east half of the west half of the northeast quarter of southwest quarter of section 17, township 1 north. So they've actually used a monument that's on one of those grids that are defined by the U.S. geologic grid system. So that's his starting point. And then range west runs south 0 degrees, 03 minutes, 8 seconds east, 20 feet to the south right-of-way line, etc., etc. And so he gets them first to the point of beginning. He gives them the dimensions of the plat of land, and then finishes up at the bottom to the point of beginning. So Osborne Russell was doing this in a very a way common enough that it is still used today. So it was obvious that he knew what he was doing just by the language he was using. So there are different kinds of monuments that you can use. So one monument, of course, can be a geographic, an object that's part of the geography that you expect that's going to be there a long time. Now, eventually, as your land plat is approved, you would replace that with another monument, a stake driven into the ground, for example. Or some of the monuments that you'll see as you're traipsing around the mountains are these concrete, I don't know, what would you call that? It's not a pole, it's a concrete
Stud.
stump. I don't know. It's a monument.
Post.
Post. There you go. So, and it'll have a little brass marker on it. And the other kind that you'll find are the ones that you see, the geodetic survey markers that are brass and stuck in the ground. We had one when we visited Colorado that was basically a piece of rebar, and it was topped with a plastic orange top, but it was very visible. Very visible. You couldn't go by it without saying, "Oh, that must mean something. Must be another of those markers." And then when I was hiding our treasure up in that area, about 6 months later, 3 months later, whatever it was, I noticed another one of those markers. So whoever's doing the ranging and marking up there, they're using that rebar with the bright fluorescent orange top upon it. So you have those survey monuments. So the question then becomes, I wanted to point out that as I was thinking about this, it reminded me of the conversation that Shelley and I had regarding the sticks, sticks and shells, puka shells,
Yeah.
that the Marshall Islanders used to map directions and distance to the various islands. The shells represented the various islands. The sticks represented distance and direction. And then there was other information like waves, direction, height, and speed that was all incorporated. But it reminded me very much of that. So it struck me that this is a universally acceptable way of describing how to get from one place to another. So the question then became, how does that apply to the poem? So I took the second stanza, and the reason I took the second stanza is because Fenn has told us that the first clue in the poem is begin at where warm waters halt. And I made a comparison between this idea that I would have a point of beginning, that I would have a direction, that I would have a distance, and at the end of that I would have a monument, and it works out. Now, I did the rest of the poem, but I'm not going to talk about it here. You're going to have to do that yourself so you can see if it works for you. These are just my thoughts as applied to the first stanza. The problem with all of this is it leaves out some things. So what's missing? What's missing is the equivalent of our waterfall, or the poem's waterfall, the point of commencement. We know that the point of beginning is warm waters halt, but we don't know exactly how to get there. So we don't have the point of commencement. The question is, what is the equivalent of our Osborne Russell waterfall? And here's the conclusion I came to. It's open for discussion, but it seems reasonable. So like everybody else, after Fenn said that the first clue was begin at where warm waters halt, I started not ignoring the first stanza, but finding ways to keep the first stanza out of my way. And we actually did a show on how the poem, we did a couple of shows actually, on how the poem was put together, and we realized that some of the content in that first stanza had to do with legal ownership of the poem. Fenn was describing it to himself. But I'm starting to wonder if the first stanza may not contain the point of commencement. We know where the point of beginning is. And part of our struggle is, as we all go through, is getting to the right point of beginning. So maybe there's something in the first stanza that we'll have to discover ourselves that tells us what the point of commencement is. And I think what the point of commencement is, in this case, in the case of the poem, gives us a place to go. It gives us, foam, which is the combination of Fenn and poem. Fenn has often said that the individual who goes to find the treasure, to recover the treasure, will go there with confidence. And part of that confidence is knowing that where you're going is actually the right location. So I'm starting to wonder if the point of commencement, it doesn't tell us not exactly where to start. Where to start is warm waters halt, but where to commence. Where do we get a start from before we start following the clues in the poem? My thinking. And if you look at it, as I have gone alone in there and with my treasures bold, I can keep my secret where and hint of riches new and old. And so that's not in the poem, but it's got to be someplace else. So the someplace else came as I reviewed some of Fenn's quotes regarding the book. And here's one that he says commonly: "Here is what I would do. Read my book in a normal manner. Then read the poem over and over and over, slowly, thinking, and read my book again, this time looking for subtle hints that will help solve the clues. We've all heard it, we've all read it, we try always to follow it. Whether you're committed to the accuracy of the poem, eventually you feel like you need to have the book in order to get hints that relate to it. Then, later on, in Mysterious Writings in August of 2016, somebody asked a question, and I thought it was an interesting question. He said, if in 500 years, if a person has... I'm sorry, I left a word out. That should be all.
All a person has.
If in 500 years, if all a person has is the poem and no backstory, they don't know, quote, in the Rocky Mountains north of Santa Fe, unquote, or that there are 9 clues, etc. Could a person reasonably just use words in the poem and find your treasure chest? And they sign, thank you, tilde, nope. So it struck me that the question that he was asking was very specific to the book. In the book, before Fenn publishes the poem, he talks a little bit about it. And in that book, he says, there are 9 clues. And in that book, he says, in the mountains north, he doesn't say Rocky Mountains in the book, but he does say in the mountains north of Santa Fe. So the 2 questions that this gentleman asked are in the book. And he asks, could I do it with just the poem? Meaning, could I do it without the book? And Fenn says, nope. He doesn't say that you can't do it without the book. What he says is you can't do it with a poem alone. So obviously there are things in the book that we need to know, and it struck me at that point, why do you need the book? I think you need the book to give you the hints required to locate the point of commencement and the point of beginning, especially the point of beginning where warm waters halt. The hint that drives you to the point of beginning is someplace in the thrill of the chase. And that's why you need not only the poem, but the book. After that, I suppose there's arguments about what else you need, a map, et cetera, or what else you need in order to find it. But I think at a minimum, you need the poem, you need a surveyor's mindset, and you need the book. And oh, by the way, the concept of traveling from one point, one monument, to another monument by distance and direction is very common to one other kind of person that Fenn is. And there's a picture of him on the thrill of the chase, the pilot. Because what a pilot does is they find their point of beginning and they fly to the equivalent of a monument via distance and direction. Because what that gives them is time. And what enables them, once they have time, they can calculate their fuel expenditure. And so those are all important to them. So not only do these kind of rules apply to a surveyor, they apply to a pilot. A pilot would make sense of all this. If a pilot were to read, and I'm sure they have not, I don't know that every pilot has, were to read a contemporary legal definition of land, they would get it immediately because those are all concepts that are familiar to them and they're comfortable with. So,
all right.
You're up.
Very nice. So thank you for watching our presentation. If you'd like to keep in contact with us, you can, of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel at gypsieskiss.tv. Click on the bell to receive notifications when we go live and when we put out new videos. You can visit our WordPress blog at agypsieskiss.com, and you can also subscribe to the blog to get notified when there are updates. You can find us on Instagram.com at /a_gypsies_kiss. You can find us on Twitter at agypsies. We're on Facebook at agypsieskiss. And you can email us at agypsieskiss@gmail.com.
If you'd like to donate to our project, please use our paypal.me account. It's paypal.me/Gypsy's Kiss. You can donate whatever you'd like. I forgot to mention Super Chat. Can I talk about Super Chat for just a minute? So if you look down at the bottom of your window, if you're using on the left-hand side bottom, you'll see a $sign. If you're on a smartphone, it'll be on the right-hand side of the bottom of your smartphone. It's a $sign. That's for Super Chat. I think you might have seen one of our viewers give us a Super Chat donation earlier. If you click on that button, it'll open a window that asks you if you really want to do this. Then it'll open a second window so you can select the amount of Super Chat that you'd like to donate. And then it gives you the opportunity, if you wish, and what we've told everybody, if you're going to donate something in Super Chat to us, make sure you ask a question so that we can answer it. Because on our screen, and I guess yours, it pops right to the top, and it's in a nice bright color depending on how much you've donated. So please use Super Chat too.
Or paypal.me, Gypsy's Kiss.
Exactly.
Both work. And give this video a thumbs up to let YouTube know that we have valuable content, and that will help us to spread the word, get our community to grow, and keep our channel healthy. So, yeah. Are we ready for Q&A?
I think you ready?
I think so.
Let's go to Q&A.
All right.
Look, you're full screen.
All right. So we're going to say hello to everybody. I think I might have lost some. Let's see.
Yeah, if it goes up too high. There you go.
All right. Mine starts a little later.
No. Our
That's
program
weird.
starts at 1 p.m. Oh, you mean on your phone?
Yeah.
Well, then
It's
just use the
1:06.
use
Anyway.
the iPad.
All right.
That's what I did.
So-
That's what I put it there for.
Man in the Barn says hello and good afternoon. Eric Schmidt says greetings. Rick Plank, hello from Cincinnati. An Average Person, hey all. And let's see, Ryan Lowe, hi everyone, good afternoon from Colorado. Sea Monkification, hello. Jimmy Fast, thought maybe you forgot daylight savings. Unfortunately, we can't forget.
No.
We don't like it, but we don't forget it.
We like daylight savings time.
Oh,
I
yeah.
like daylight
Anyway,
savings time.
we just don't like the bouncing back and forth. Anyway, we just had a small glitch in the startup, but
It
things happen.
wasn't bad. What had happened is the last time we did a live stream, we did it at Facebook, and
right.
and I forgot that I had to re-establish my live streaming connection to YouTube. So we started on Facebook.
So we
today.
thought we were live and we weren't live.
Yeah. Well, we were live, but we were live on Facebook.
Oh. Anyway, Amy Smith, hey y'all, I'm here. Good.
Hey,
We're
Amy,
glad to
how are
see
you doing?
Shane McLaughlin, where's the treasure?
We know, but we can't tell you.
We be the treasure. Journeyman, hello. Paul McGinty, good afternoon. Susan Hecken Liable. She didn't get a notification, but
Uh-oh. Did you click
she's
the
here
bell?
anyway. Yes, you must click the bell.
Gotta click
You've
the
got to
bell.
have those little quote marks around your bell. Crow Dudley, hello from Southern Indiana. Virgil Kane, hi from Iowa. Paul Wood, hello everyone. John Gould, greetings all. John York, hello everyone. Quest Geek, hello AGK. Jeremy Milstead, hey y'all. Mary Green, hello AGK and all. Virgil Kane with his $20 donation to Super Chat.
Thank you, Virgil. We really appreciate it.
Steve Smitherman, hi Roll Tide. B Cross, Bill Cross, greetings. Let's see, Shane McLaughlin.
You know what? I did the same thing. I popped out chat, and I've lost the top half of the chat. Oh, speaking of which, well, go ahead. Why don't you go ahead with your...
Well, I've hit the part where I can start seeing it on my
Oh,
phone.
okay.
So
All right.
if you need that one, you can take that one.
No, I've got one here. It's just like I said.
Okay.
I went back
Well,
to...
we're on Shane McLaughlin, but Forrest Fenn likes complicated. It's going to be the opposite of what we would assume by human psychology. I really think he hit it on the reservation.
Yeah, well,
That wouldn't do anybody any good.
nope. You can kiss it
Unless
off
the Native Americans
because
find it.
that means if you're not Native American, you'll never own it. Actually, it means if you're Native American, you won't own it because it belongs to the tribes.
Right.
So a couple of things while Shelley's looking to greet everybody. Wow, that looks so loud to me. Couple of things. Number one, I didn't put the chat panel up on this video, and the reason is I don't know if we qualified, but YouTube has seen fit to give us the live chat replay feature on our videos from this point forward. So although you don't see it on the video, we got back that screen space. You will see it after YouTube processes the video, and you'll see it play. If you're watching it on a desktop, you'll see it on the right side of your screen. If you're on a mobile device, it'll be below the video. So
All right.
we were very grateful for that. Oh, and don't forget, if you have a question for us, use the @ Gypsy so it pops out, and we can see it. Make sure you're asking us a question.
Odious Soul, hey, watching from a train headed for New York.
Oh, I love that train. Are you going from Washington? I used to make that trip pretty damn regularly.
Alan K, sound is good.
Good.
Shane McLaughlin, how big is the blaze? Big enough to see when your boots on the ground, but not big enough to see from Google Earth.
Wow, look at you, Miss Searcher Blaze Know-It-All.
We're going to talk more about that tomorrow night.
That's right. We're going to talk more about the blaze tomorrow night with Cynthia.
JL, greetings and salutations from North Dakota.
Wow, East Coaster.
And Shane McLaughlin, why did he say Spanish Toy Factory and not just Toy Factory? What's the association? And we'll talk more about that on Thursday.
You're going to have to watch that on Thursday to figure that out.
You're way ahead on those questions. All right. Mary Green, hid it on a reservation makes very complicated, indeed. Jeremy Milstead, because he made marbles and yo-yos whilst in Spanish class. And Matt, Spanish class, right. Ms. Ford was his Spanish teacher.
Did you say hi to Susan Heckin Liable?
Lori James says, what happened to Sonia?
Oh, so Richard, so he kept the blog going until 2015, and he was still working. And he had gone out, as a matter of fact, you'll see the last blog post that he made in 2015 tells you what happened, but I'll share it with you. He had gone out to show some friends of his or some acquaintances of his some property, and they were standing on the edge of a downslope, not quite a cliff, but a steep slope. And he went to step on what he thought was a stable rock on the edge of the slope, and it wasn't. And when he put his weight on it, it tipped the rock, and he went sliding down the slope, tumbling down the slope for about 40 feet, and in the process, he broke his right leg in several locations. So he describes all of that in the final post on his blog. There are no posts after that, but I do know that eventually he retired from his work, and he and his wife moved to Arizona, where they presently live. I haven't followed up for about the past year, so I'm assuming he's still alive, living in Arizona with his wife as a retired forester.
All right. I don't know where this is coming from, but Shane McLaughlin says, why did he pray to Thor? That is odd and way out there. I was thinking Garden of the Gods in Colorado when I read that part.
Oh,
I don't know where that comes from.
I don't know where that comes from.
Praying to Thor.
We'll get to that point in the book eventually,
Right.
I'm sure.
Virgil Kane says, I sold a building lot off a 40-acre piece on meets and bounds.
Yep.
And then they're all wondering the correct word. Was it registered, filed, deeded, filed a claim, recorded,
I think that's a
staked?
recorded. That's it. Recorded. You recorded at the county courthouse for that for your property.
Okay, so Jimmy Fast is the winner. Congratulations.
Oh, congratulations, Jimmy Fast.
Paul Wood, do you think Forrest put the chest in water or underground? And I wonder if he put wax on the chest to protect it. What is so important about 1932? Thanks.
Whoa. Let's see. So we express our opinion on these matters, and I'm sure other people in the room. I do not believe it is placed in underwater, and we do not believe it is buried. We believe Forrest accurately describes where the treasure is when he says it's hidden. What's important about 1932? Was the end of the Depression? I don't know.
32?
I don't know. If that's one of those things that you found in the book that you find interesting, I couldn't tell you. He'd be 2 years old, so it wasn't an interesting time for him. So I don't know what's important about 1932. I am bouncing into the red over here. I'm just really worried that I'm blowing everybody out.
Okay, well, let's see if it says anything about our loudness. Anybody think we're too loud?
Adam Foddy thinks you look great tonight. He's in the UK, so he is tonight.
Oh, okay.
He's probably drinking. You having
Future man.
Yeah. So Adam probably has candle lights and wine whenever he watches this program.
I'm sure he does. All right.
So how far up are we how far down are we in the questions? Let's
Okay,
see.
well, Eric says to Paul, he has said it's not underwater.
Yeah.
Shane McLaughlin again. I personally suspect that Fenn has a property title in the box to something nearby the location of the chest, like a hidden little property he never told anybody about.
I'm not sure that I agree with you, Shane, but I started thinking to myself, remember that story that he told, and I can't remember exactly where he told it, about the Dr. Pepper and how after calculating his land, he came to the conclusion that he owned 2 acres, and then he describes very carefully how he could put, if he wanted, a Dr. Pepper under a stone in the river. And I thought to myself, maybe what we ought to be doing is looking at all the county courthouses for a recorded deed for a piece of property that's 12 by 12 by, 12 inches by 12 inches by 12 inches by 12 inches. So maybe there's something there. I mean, I had the thought after I started preparing this presentation that maybe there's something there. Maybe he's got a land plat for the 2 acres that he thinks he owns, because you could do that. You could make a legal claim on that property, and that's where he hid the treasure, and that, it's his property, it's his treasure. I suppose that would either create a lot more questions or not. So,
Shane McLaughlin, kind of like Lewis and Clark, go back to the starting point.
Yep.
Virgil Kane, the acreage inside of the Meats and Browns would be described as more or less, such as 100 acres more or less. Susan Heckenleibel, thanks for sharing this information. Very interesting and relevant. And Adam Foddy says, hi.
Hey, Adam. You see, with the wine and the candles.
And Brian Eagles says pylon when we were talking about the post. Maybe he was a pylon.
Well, that's interesting because it could very well be, but a pylon is something related to flight. Pylons are flight related.
Let's see. Shane McLaughlin, does anybody remember what shape, if any, that Forrest Fenn mentions often? Maybe it could be a hint of the geographic layout for the quest.
Didn't somebody do some research on that and came up with didn't obelisk? Does Fenn have used the look up? Go to Terry Scant and look for obelisk. I kind of remember that.
Jimmy Fast, at the bookstore video, Fenn was
Moby Dickens.
If you followed the clues precisely, would you make a loop? I guess he was asked. If you followed the clues precisely, would you make a loop? He said no, without giving too much away.
Right. So I don't mean to imply by my presentation today that you would be, if you, so I stole some of the stuff and I left some of the stuff, returning to the point of beginning as you would in a deeded piece of property. I don't believe you would do if you were looking for the treasure. I just wanted to use the example of the monuments, point of commencement, point of beginning, and the fact that you would travel in a particular direction for a particular distance. So I don't mean to imply that you should return to the beginning. That's not in our solution. It's up to you how you want to use it. But no, I didn't mean to imply that today.
All right. Forrest Fenn made his own bronze markers. Says Susan Heckenleibel.
I kind of like that. That there are some indications at the end, at the point of each monument, where you can find it. And the other thing I started thinking about after I read that Osborne Russell story is maybe when he uses the word. We have always talked about the blaze. We'll talk about this more tomorrow night, but maybe he did mark a tree with the expectation that tree would have a limited life, and that if you found it before that, okay, and if you didn't, you didn't. So, I started, again, stimulated thought about maybe the blaze really is a blaze in the classic Forester's definition.
Let's see. Shane McLaughlin, I thought the lady asked him if there would be switchbacking. He said looping?
Yeah, the conversation didn't go exactly like that. I do remember it, but you're going to have to go back to the Moby Dickens video and take a look.
Sean Malloy.
By the way, Shelley and I are planning our shows several weeks out. And I think one of the things that we're going to be doing soon is we're going to go back to the Collected Works video, the early one, the one in October of 2013, and the Moby Dickens video. And yes, I know I recorded both of those videos and I was there. And that night before I left, I made what James Comey would call contemporaneous notes. And so we're going to go back over those notes because there were things that happened in both of those events that weren't exactly caught by the video. And so we're going to review the important parts of Collected Works 2013 and Moby Dickens 2013 over the next couple of weeks. We have next week's show planned, but after that.
Sean Malloy, give us homework. Come on, Ms. Ford. We got homework. We gave you homework today. Jimmy Fast, she said switching back, then making a loop. She's dangerous.
Yeah, that's what he called her. Mm-hmm. Yeah, whenever Fenn is intimidated by a female with a search solution, she becomes dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Colleen DeBaldo, hi Toby and Shelley, always enjoy your vlogs. Thank you. Jimmy Fast, Moby Dickens video. We just talked about that. So, Shane McLaughlin, now I remember Forrest Fenn said, if you follow the clues precisely, that the clues will lead you straight to the treasure. Direction is straight. Is the direction straight?
No, I don't think so. And the reason is that when you're boots on the ground, there just isn't anything straight there. As you head, it may be straight as you go from, quote, monument, unquote, to, quote, monument, unquote. So the put in below the home of Brown to me is the equivalent in our, based on our what we presented today, a monument. So there may be straight lines between monuments, but I don't think the entire solution from Warm Waters Halt to bumping into the blaze, I don't think it's necessarily straight.
That just could be the way he talks,
yeah.
Affectation. Let's see. Susan Hagen-Leibel. The only starting point Forrest Fenn gives us is Santa Fe. I think we need to start in Santa Fe.
Well, you know what? Santa Fe is a good place to start because it's such a nice town. I was born there.
And then go north.
Apparently,
to the mountains. David Charles Davio. Hints and clues. JFA Treasure Hunter. Hi, guys. Just happened to check out YouTube and saw you live. I'm going to be excited to go get the treasure by the end of March. But gonna be sad to bring it to an end.
Us too, because then we have to worry about what we're gonna do with our YouTube channel. We're gonna make a drones channel. We're gonna turn our YouTube channel into a drones channel because they seem to be very popular.
Yeah, and that's something you love anyway.
Yeah.
All right, Paul Wood says good luck on that. Me too.
Good luck on that. Hey, by the way, Shelley and I are gonna be headed out at the end of the month as well. So
hey, we'll bump into you.
Maybe we'll bump into you as we're carrying the treasure chest.
Sneaking it out.
Yeah, sneaking it out.
Oh, it's nothing.
No, we have nothing here.
It's a drone baby. Shane McLaughlin, sorry. Does anybody else think Hear Me All and Listen Good also refers to listening to Forrest Fenn talking in general and to read between the lines?
I'm gonna let the folks answer. I don't have a credible answer for.
John Robinette, hello from South Point, Ohio.
Where are you? Why am I missing all this stuff? Moby Dickens. Keep going. I'll catch up with you. John, who did you just say? Oh, South Point,
John Robinette.
Ohio. Okay, I got it. Okay.
Okay. Matt says, perhaps the place of origin is mountains north of Santa Fe. Very likely.
Well, you know what? That's very possible. Maybe we do have the point of commencement in the mountains north of Santa Fe.
Mm-hmm. I think so. Boise says hi. Edward Owen.
David Charles, it is Dead Reckoning. I mean, it's the equivalent of Dead Reckoning. Now, when a surveyor does this, of course, he has all the tools that he needs. And now, of course, those tools are connected to the GPS satellite system. So it's not quite as Dead Reckoning as it used to be without corrections on the map, et cetera, et cetera. So one of our theories had to do with the fact that some of the directions could be found in the Thrill of the Chase. And then when the benchmark came out, map came out, they put the magnetic declinations on the map. And so if you had the degrees in the book and the declinations in the map, you had some components necessary for Dead Reckoning. So possible.
Forrest also said you need the map, Man in the Barn. Then we're discussing that the book club is on Thursday. Absolutely. We'll be talking about my Spanish Toy Factory on Thursday. Please join us. And let's see.
Ryan, he did say that. I'm answering Ryan Lowe.
Okay.
AGK, didn't Fenn say that the hints are not placed to deliberately or intentionally aid the seeker? Yes, he did say that, or something similar to that. But I think the important part of what he says is that there are hints in the book that help you with the clues, and I would limit it to that, so that all that other noise, doesn't prevent you from doing something wise.
Lori James says, I like this, Toby. Makes more sense than most. Logical, like Fenn.
It's my training. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I have no feelings as a result.
Shane McLaughlin says, Forrest Fenn spent 15 years on the poem. Why that long? Why did he say those words may look simple, but they aren't? Not exact quote, but close enough. He stressed that.
Because he was writing, his objective was not to write a poem. I mean, anybody can sit down, generally speaking, and write a credible poem. We've all done it for, I'm sure, homework when we were in English class. So anybody can write a poem, but he wasn't writing a poem. He was drawing a map. And so if you've drawn a map and you have to translate it into a poem, it's going to take a lot of work, especially when you want it to be as accurate as he claims to have been when he wrote it. So the poem part is not what took him 50 years. Or 15 years rather. It's figuring out how to translate the directions that he had to find the treasure into a credible poem. And I think the other thing too is when he wrote the poem, he didn't want to embarrass himself. He wanted to write a good poem that had the clues in it. So I think that could take 15 years.
And according to Douglas Preston in the foreword for Once Upon a While, the poem got more difficult, harder over the years.
Over the years it's got,
so
yeah.
I'd like to see that first rendition and see how easy it was.
Joe, sorry we're going quiet here as we
Jeremy
go through.
Branson says, great points today.
Thank you.
Denise Bagley says hello.
Hey, Denise.
And Adam Foddy says, I look great. Of course. We all know that.
Wait, didn't he just say that up there before, or is that the
No,
second?
that was hello.
Oh,
I don't know. You read that.
Oh, okay.
I thought I'd read again.
All right. I'm telling you, he's sitting there with candles and a glass of wine watching.
Richard Moore, can you describe what you believe the hiding place looks like, niche, etc.? Also, do you believe anyone other than those Forrest Fenn brought there has been to the hiding place in the last 200 years?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I believe that the hiding place, the place he hid it is in, so I'm just going to describe what I envision. You know how I always talk about envisioning what your solution is. So I'm going to tell you what I envision. I envision the equivalent of a naturally made cave, location, not man-made. It's not a mine, but it's a naturally made cave in the face of a rock. and that it's big enough not only to fit the treasure chest. And one of the neat things about it is it's camouflaged by nature, and I don't mean it's covered by trees, but it would be really, really difficult to see unless you were directly on top of it. And I don't know how much time you've actually spent in looking for this thing, or in the mountains for that matter, but I know as I go hiking, when I was hiking in the Colorado Rockies, I would run into these places above the tree line that as you went by, you didn't see anything, you didn't notice anything, but when you were coming back down that trail, you realized there was a little niche in there, a little cave in there. And so it was camouflaged in one direction, but not camouflaged in the other. So I always envision that it's camouflaged in some way, that you could walk by it, but if you walked back in the same direction, you might see it, or you might have a feeling that there's something there. So I also believe it's big enough to have placed his body into, because that was his original plan. Now, in terms of other people being there, I don't think he knows whether or not someone had been there in the past. A lot of what I feel about the special place, to me, would have some Native American influence. So there might be petroglyphs nearby. So it could have been previously used by early Americans or the Spanish, or so it is possible that somebody had been there physically. Siri, hang that up. Can I do that to Siri? Hold on.
Apparently not.
Hang this up.
And I agree that it's in some sort of a niche. I think it might be a little bit low to the ground. It's not at eye level, it's below. And that might be why he said kids might have an advantage seeing it, but not too low, because that 3-year-old girl is going to need some help to get there. So that's about the extent of what I have.
So let me continue just a little bit more. So I believe your niche principle is possible, except that it's big enough to hold his body, because his original intent was to throw his bones on the treasure, his body on the treasure, and allow his bones to remain with it. As far as people being there, I think it's perfectly plausible that people had been there. I don't know necessarily in the last 200 years. To me, his special place would have been unique to him. So maybe he feels like he discovered this place first. I do believe that he showed it either to his two fathers, either to Eric Sloan or to his real father, because I think that's where the quote about "don't go where a 79 or 80-year-old man couldn't go." So I think it's very possible that he may have shared that with them, and then we fall into the two people can keep a secret where if one of them is dead. So when they both passed away, the secret of this special place would have passed with them. So how's that for a complete answer?
All right. Jan Kerb. Fenn recently answered a new question on mysterious writings, I think March 11th.
Mm. She's going to share that with us?
Didn't we see that one already? That he hadn't shared any special information with anybody? Wasn't that one?
I don't remember. I think there's something even more recent than that. Well, Today's the 13th. Yeah, today's the 13th, so that was only 2 days ago. Oh. That other one about special information was like a week ago. So
okay.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't either. JC, did Forrest really say he has a gut feeling it'll be found this summer?
Yes, he said it at the end of the Nightline video, which you can find on our...
He said it at the 6 questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. The most recent 6 questions on Jenny Kyle's Mysterious Writings website. We also have a video where we reviewed those Q&As. So if you go back in our video list, I can't think of it. Playlist. You'll see our analysis, and we analyzed that particular statement and told you what we thought about it.
Mm-hmm. And Virgil said, just want to support you guys occasionally. Great content. Thank you.
Virgil, that's very kind. Thank you. We owe you a question at least sometime, and maybe when you find yourself out in this area, we'll buy you a cup of coffee. How's that? B. Cross. Hey, B. Bill. By the way, Bill, thank you very much for your continued support of our channel via our PayPal.me account. That's
So
really
Adam
thoughtful.
Foddy wanted to know, did Forrest ever get back to you regarding the 6 questions?
No, not only that. So I really feel like I'm being, what do they call it?
Ostracized?
Not ostracized, but
Banned?
not banned. What do you? There's another one, journalist.
Shat
There goes the monetization for this week. I don't know if the YouTube. I wonder if the YouTube channel will pick up Shat. Oh,
I only
or
said
the
it once.
YouTube robot.
I only said it twice.
So yeah, I never did. Was that Adam?
Yes.
Yeah, Adam. I never did get a response, and I recently wrote him another email regarding next week's show, and didn't get a response to that. So I've come to the conclusion that he's not. He's even more mad at me than ever. I don't know.
Oh, well.
Because he's not responding.
He's incommunicado
Yeah, incommunicado. That's
with
the word
us
that we're saying.
anyway.
Yeah.
We'll keep working
So
on it.
we are
But we
on-
did do a video about what the questions were that we asked. In case you have missed that, that's in our playlist as well.
Yeah.
"1932 was a lead year starting Friday, etc., etc." I don't-
Hey, somebody asked what's the importance of 1932. Let's see. An average person.
Mhm.
Go ahead and read it.
AGK from an average person. Forrest Fenn stated that most of the areas existed when he was a kid, with regards to the poem locations. Any thoughts on which ones didn't exist when he was a kid?
Yeah, you've got to go back and I've read that quote several times, and it's very tricky. And I think what you have to break it down. What he says is that the locations existed when he was a kid, but the clues didn't. And all he's telling, it's Forrest speak. He's telling you that the locations that he applied the clues to did exist, but the clues didn't because he hadn't written them yet. So go back and read that, and because you have to read it 2 or 3 times because it's Fenn speak, and you have to realize he's not, as usual, telling you anything.
And if
He's
he-
not telling you anything that you couldn't have already concluded on your own.
And if he did use a tree as a marker, then the tree probably wasn't there, or it would have been a sapling. It wouldn't have been as big. It wouldn't have been the same kind of large tree that it is now.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Jeffrey Carter says, hello from, he's lunchtime at school.
Oh.
Thank God.
School, isn't it spring break?
Thank God for smartphones, no? Amy Smith, AGK. Shelley, did you have any thoughts on cold case? That was the question she asked you last
Well,
week.
I thought about it a little bit, and I thought, well, a cold case relating to police work is something that people have really given up on. So I believe cold case might refer to something that somebody's given up on finding the answer to. That's as much as I have.
Going down to Mr. G, right below that. Tim?
Did you pass
Did I pass?
Man in the Barn?
Where do you see Man in the Barn?
I think you went too far down.
Oh.
I haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to leave it up to you because
Okay, well, I'll read
I'm gonna end
Man
up
in the
missing.
Barn. What are the odds the monument looks kind of like an olive jar?
Oh, interesting. I think so. I'm going to use the word monuments cautiously because the implication of using that word is that they are somehow man-made and person-placed objects, and I don't believe necessarily that's true. I think when I use monuments in the context of the poem, I'm using a euphemism for the word waypoint. It's a physical place, but I don't think it's necessarily. I don't think necessarily that you'll find a man-made object there. You'll just find the equivalent of a monument, a waypoint there, so you know that you can change direction and head for a new distance. So,
Okay. That was this one, so we're here at this point.
The other thing, I should mention, the other thing about using this particular strategy that I described today is that it took me further down the poem than the blaze. It works, it applies as you go further down the poem from begin where warm waters halt.
Colleen DeBaldo, has anyone ever considered that Fenn left the chest in his backpack so it may be camouflaged?
One would have to assume that he wore a backpack, and remember that he made 2 trips. And I had read someplace or had heard someplace that the first trip he made contained that he was carrying the treasure, and that the second, which would to me just be the opposite of the way that you do it, and that the second trip contained the chest. So when he walked out of there, the things that he was carrying in the backpack, the treasure and the chest, were now in situ. They were in the place that he wanted to leave them. So he had an empty backpack. I don't believe that he would have left them in the backpack. He described once what someone would find when they arrived at that point, and the pleasure of opening up the top of the chest and having the glow of all these jewels and gold reflected back at you. So I don't necessarily think that he would have done that. I think having hidden it is probably enough to keep it from being viewed until you're, he once said, someone once asked him, would a metal detector helped? And his answer was the equivalent of, yeah, if you're right there on top of the chest. So I don't necessarily think that it's in a backpack. I think it's out in the open, open in the context of whatever niche he hid it in, not open in the sense that it's out in the middle of a field someplace.
And Amy Smith says, what was reading between the lines referring to?
I don't know who said that. Did I say that?
I don't know.
Amy, I don't know where that comes from. You'll have to give me a citation of some kind. I don't know.
Mr. G, do you think the place Fenn parked his car has only one road in, one road out? Do you think the last road was a dirt road?
One road in, one road out. That's interesting. So the implication of the question that you're asking is that one of the roads that he was on is effectively a dead end. Having been in these areas in the modern day, today, there are very few roads that you could get on that would be a dead end, where if you chose to, you could have put in below the home of Brown and then done your business with hiding the treasure as you walked back and forth to the hiding spot, and then you could have continued your drive. The dead end theory that you propose is interesting in the sense that the implication is that the home of Brown, put in below the home of Brown, is not only a monument, a waypoint, but a stopping point. I don't think so, and here's why. I think the stopping point was the hiding place. I think as you draw out the waypoints, you're not concerned about whether or not you can expand from the waypoints in either direction until you get to the hiding spot. I think the dead end is the hiding spot. So no, I don't think so.
Jake, thanks for the show. Do you think the poem should be read from a late 1800s, early 1900s standpoint? People don't use the words tarry, halt, scant that often in this day and age. I'm not sure that it would make a difference, because the definitions, the definitions of those words in their, so their utilization is what I would refer to as archaic. You're right. They haven't been in the language in common usage for a long time, but the definitions haven't changed. And I think if you go back, there are too many words that are in the poem that are
in common contemporary usage. There are a few words that are in the poem that are not in common contemporary usage. So I might focus on those words in terms of how I incorporated them into my solution, but the definitions haven't changed. So I don't think it's necessary to read it in the context of that period. He wrote it. We know that he wrote it between, 1988 and 2003. He says it took him 15 years, and he's a contemporary writer. He doesn't. If you look at any of his writings, he doesn't. There are writers who write like they're living in 1850, and if you want to see what somebody who lived in 1850, just read, Huckleberry Finn. That's how they wrote in 1850. He doesn't. He writes in a very contemporary way, and I think that's why he appreciates Saunier's weblog, because Saunier writes in a very contemporary, very heartfelt, but very contemporary.
Toby's, this is from Virgil Kane. Toby's cave also happens to be a rattlesnake den. This is why Fenn and we recommend that you carry a flashlight wherever you go and make sure you check things out before you go sticking your hand in it.
And a sandwich so you can throw at the snakes.
But yeah, there are snakes, especially in the lower parts of the Rocky Mountains. So be wary, carry a flashlight, wear your snake skins.
Yeah, anytime you're in the wild, you're going to run into animals that are not safe to be around. For the most part, they're more afraid of you than you are of them, but there is the occasional accident where you bump into one of them and it surprises. And there's nothing more wild animal dislikes than being surprised. And that's how rattlesnakes are. But rattlesnakes will let you know they're coming, and will let you know they're there. And you should be wearing snake skins. And you're right. You shouldn't be. Shelley's right. You shouldn't be poking your hands in spaces that you haven't first checked out with a flashlight, because even if it's not a rattlesnake den, there may be a snake in there,
or spiders, or
something, or any other creepy crawly. Yeah.
Or make Toby do it. That's what I do.
Could you come and put your hand in this one?
Yeah, wear gloves.
Yeah.
I think that's another thing that he mentioned, that's a good idea. Forrest said, wear gloves.
All his safety, he had his safety conversation, didn't he?
So hello to John Bobbitt.
Hey, John Bobbitt, how are you doing?
Matt wants to know, why do you believe Forrest is mad at you?
I don't know necessarily that he's mad at me. What I do know is that he doesn't communicate with me, unless it's a point at which I have offended either him or one of his friends.
Well, he did when you asked him about that John Fry thing, didn't he? Answer you?
He did.
Said he had not talked to him?
But K-Pro he talked to a couple of other people as well,
okay.
Or tried to reach out. So he got emails from a couple of others as well.
Okay.
So I shouldn't say that. That's probably wrong for me to say. I don't think he's mad. I don't know that he's mad at me. I know that he's not communicating with me. And so my searcher brain says, oh, he's not communicating with you because you've come up with a solution that he knows gets you to the treasure. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
Because we're the ones.
Because
we're the big threat.
We don't know why. We don't think it's mad because we've run into him. We were at Collected Works and he shook my hand, said hello. He was very warm. He hugged Shelley, and I've got a picture to prove it. So I am, I don't know necessarily. I say that, and I probably shouldn't.
Clifford Langeneck agrees with us that we're getting close to the treasure. So he won't talk to us because, he doesn't want to give out any extra clues.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to be seen as
providing clues.
As cavorting with the enemy. What do you call that? Cavorting, not cavorting.
Treason.
Treason.
What cavorting with the enemy is.
John Gould. Why would Fenn want to risk having the whole world know about his special place if the finder would reveal the location?
I don't think he worries about it. I think he has said on more than one occasion what the finder does with the treasure, what the finder does after the treasure, what the finder does, period, after finding the treasure is up to the finder. He says he doesn't care one way or the other. So at that point, the fact that a finder has found the treasure constitutes a violation of the special place anyway. So what difference does it make? So maybe we can, once the finder announces it and tells us where we can find it, we could go make a Fenn monument there. But I think his position on the matter has always been that's up to the finder. The finder wants to, let people know where he found it, or he or she found it, or let people know that it was or was not found, or he's always said that's up to the finder. It's his, it's theirs. And he says it's theirs now. So
I'm not sure what this means, but Timothy Alcar says, why is it Forrest Fenn says he would rather be rotting in the sun than a hospital bed with people talking?
You know what? That's an old guy who's, I know because I'm the same way. When my mother passed away, I was up in the mountains. I happened to be, I was searching for treasure up in the mountains. And up there, my cell phone service, I didn't get cell phone service until Espanola. There's this big tower in Espanola, and you can tell when you're within 5 miles of Espanola because all your voicemails and text messages. And my sister had let me know, was calling me and texting me to let me know that my mother passed away and that I needed to get down to Santa Fe as quickly as I could. And I did, and she had passed away at the hospital, the St. Vincent's Hospital on St. Michael's Drive. And so I went there and ran into my sister, and she was angry at me for not being made available. I tried to explain what it was. There was no indication that my mother was going to pass away that weekend. And she said, well, we asked the doctor to hold her for you so you could visit with her, for lack of a better way to describe it. So my sister showed me to a room where my mother's body was. And I walked in, and I was there for 10 seconds, and I walked back out. And my sister said, what happened or this? And my response was, that's not my mother. Shelley will tell you I have a very pragmatic view of death. And what was in that room was not my mother. And it wasn't anything that even resembled my mother as far as I was concerned. There was no life in it. And so as you get older, one of the things that you want out of your death, since you've had, as Fenn has, an interesting life, is a death that's your way, that you get to have it your way. We don't often get that. And,
No.
And we don't envision that we're going to be, some people will tell you, when I die, I want to be in my bed, not a hospital bed, surrounded by my family and friends. That would be, I suppose, perfect, although I'm not sure what it was. Fenn's choice was to die out in the wilderness. And I think now, based on some of the comments that he's made recently, he knows that's not going to be possible. And, by the way, his family don't want him to go out into the woods and die where his treasure is or something. They want to have him close by so that they can, be near the man that they love. So, but I think that's one of the things that we old guys say, I want to die on the Pecos River, just below Torero, on a little stretch of the river there. That's the best fishing spot I've ever had. Or there was a time where, I'm not going to go through all the ways that I wanted to die. But
I know some ways you didn't want to die because you refused to.
yeah,
How many times? 3,
it's
4?
no, it's up to 6 or 7, I think. Anyway,
What are you, a cat?
yeah. Anyway, I think that's just kind of the thinking that goes along with getting old as you start considering your death. It's happened to me. I'm 69 now, and I'm on the lower side of this thing, and I'm going to die, and I don't know if it's going to be soon or not, but it's something you think about. I want to die with, I used to have
The
these
drone in
adventure
the air.
looks. I want to die being struck by my own drone. So they have video of it.
Yeah.
I want the
And you're
video.
going like this, right?
So this new Mavic Air you can actually control with your hands. And one of the things, if you want to shoot yourself if you want
Shoot
to,
yourself.
not I mean shoot yourself.
You arm the drone, right? And then you go, shoot me.
One of the things that you can do is tell the drone that you want to make a video, and the way that you do that is you look at the drone and you do this, and it starts shooting video. One of the other things that you can do is you can take a snapshot, and in order to get the drone to take a snapshot, you do this. So from now on, all my photos are going to be like that. So I want to die being
Toby's
struck.
a hippie now. He's going like this in all his photos.
I want to die by being struck on the back of the head by one of my drones with the camera rolling while I'm looking for where I lost my drone.
No, what would be better is you're flying the drone, right?
Yeah.
And and it's shooting towards you, and then all of a sudden a bear comes and attacks you, kills you, Dad, and the drone catches all of the footage, and then we put it online and we make $1 million. Well, you're survivors.
Oh, I want to be flying a drone while
Wouldn't that
eaten
be
by a
awesome,
bear
right?
searching for Fenn's treasure. Yeah, that would be ideal.
That'd be fun. So John Bobbitt
Could we
says,
not be any morbid anymore?
let's not be morbid.
Okay.
Except John Bobbitt's going to be morbid now.
Okay.
Bob Ross was in the Air Force and he died in 1995 of lymphoma. This was about 5 years before Forrest hid it. Could Bob Ross have painted a landscape of where the location of the treasure is?
Okay, John Bobbitt. That falls into the anything is possible category.
Yeah.
I don't
thought
have
it was fun.
Don't have any evidence.
Other than the lymphoma and
Yeah.
death. It was fun.
Don't have any evidence otherwise. Anything is possible.
Okay. Mary Green says Forrest took the gold in first because the car could be stolen or damaged.
Okay. Oh, good. Is that your conclusion, or did you hear that someplace, Mary?
Of course, Eric Schmidt wants to know from John Bobbitt, why would Forrest share that location with Bob Ross of all people?
Bob Ross.
Because who doesn't love Bob Ross?
Who doesn't love Bob Ross? So you've got the Q&A, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go to the control room while you're doing that.
Danny A.G. Hey, Toby. When Fenn says people have been within 200 feet from the treasure, what if it's not 200 feet in linear but in elevation? Clue number 1 is 200 feet higher than clue number 2. For example, a mountain or lake.
We think it's possible. Was it Danny?
Yes.
Danny, we think that the 200 feet, when you're dealing with someone like Fenn, can be measured in a variety of ways. And so it is possible that when he said they were within 200 feet, they could have been, on the lower part of a mountainside, and the treasure was above them rather than a flat perpendicular distance. So, yes.
Sea Monkey Vacation says the treasure is under a happy little tree. So Mary Green, when do the snakes leave the den? When it's warm out, right?
Yeah,
They go out
well,
and lay in the sun?
it depends. They're like everybody else that hibernates. It depends on the temperature and things like weather and et cetera, et cetera. They come out during the sunlight to pick up heat because they're cold-blooded creatures. So they lay in the sun and then go back to the den in the evening because they've collected all that heat.
Jason Hilgerson says hi. Scott P says hey.
Hey, guys. So, can I fill in with something? I don't have anything to fill in with, actually.
Oh. We're wondering where Mr. Gorman is.
Oh, where is Bill?
Let's see. Jake says, do you think idioms may be helpful in solving some of the clues? Water high, come hell or high water comes to mind.
Jake, I've always wondered how you translate. He keeps telling us that everything you need to know is in the poem. So, and we know for certain that the poem isn't precise in the sense that the words that are written in the poem don't tell us anything. so it's necessary for us. No, well, I shouldn't say they don't tell us anything. They tell us where to start. So our responsibility to all of this is to be able to translate the words in the poem into something that can be understood in the context of a map and a set of directions. The question that I don't have an answer to is it a cipher? Are they idioms? Are they anagrams? So there's all these possibilities that could be interpreted as tools for translation. Idioms is one of them. But I think you're onto something in the sense that once you decide what the tool for translation is, I think that tool is consistent from the beginning of the poem to the end. I think if you decide it's idioms, and it could very well be, I don't know because I still haven't translated the poem myself, but I think if you decide it's idioms, then your job is easier because I think it's idioms throughout the poem. If you decide it's ciphers, then it's ciphers throughout the poem. If you decide it's anagrams, it's anagrams throughout the poem. So it could be idioms, but I don't know that it could be idioms any more than it can be any of the others.
Or synecdoche.
That drives me crazy when you say that.
Why?
In a good way, you know. I love the way she says synecdoche.
Synecdoche. Edward Owen says, how important to you and, of course, Forrest Fenn is a waterfall in the Solve and Search?
Well, up until I read that little Osborne Russell ditty where he started with a full waterfall, it wasn't a big thing. There are, as we discussed last week, there's all these references to water. Waterfalls make great monuments, right? Great marker points. So, considering the number of times water and the vertical direction are mentioned in the poem, both up and down and variations thereof, it is very possible that there is a waterfall in the description, in the property lines that we were talking about earlier. I think it's very possible, and it would be very elegant because he mentions it in the book. And generally speaking, waterfalls they're attractive. They're good. They're, for the most part, they're good-looking objects, and so it would fit kind of into the grand scheme of things. So I'm starting to think that maybe a waterfall is part of all this. I still can't tell you where it is. It's starting to become, it's starting to, what's the word I'm looking for? It's starting to be. Not obvious. I don't know. Obvious is a pattern. Yeah, the patterns indicate that there may very well be a waterfall someplace in the poem. Did we thank Virgil for his super chat contribution? Thank you, Virgil. Okay, is that it? Hand me that iPad. Can you hand me that iPad, please? So, and the reason is I've got this one in the control room just so I can watch it. I can help you with this Q&A.
I think I'm at the bottom. Yeah, I am.
Are you?
I am.
Okay.
John Bobbitt says, when somebody finds the treasure, can they have a showing on AGK? Well, of course.
Yes, absolutely. We've always said that if you find the treasure and you want to announce it on a Gypsy's Kiss, send us a quick email. We will get back in touch with you via cell phone.
We'll probably have a long talk with you about, are you sure you don't want to remain anonymous? Because we don't want to do a report on something and then have something bad happen to the person because we spread the news. So, we recommend anonymity, but if you want to share the treasure with the world, we're happy to do that with you.
Mr. G, AGK a little off topic, but Toby, have you ever prospected for gold in New Mexico, or at all for that matter? I have panned and not dredged, but sluiced for gold in New Mexico. Have found some on both the Pecos and the Red River, and I have dredged with a friend in Colorado. So I've done a little bit of both of those things.
I have a friend whose husband's family has a stake, not too far from the east side of the Ciendias, I believe, a gold stake claim.
A claim.
Yeah, that they
Mining
mine.
claim.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem with most of the mining here in this area where we're at around Albuquerque is it's dry mining. There's not enough water to do
Definitely.
water-based mining, so you have to do that dry mining, and it's just not very pretty.
Mm.
Not that mining has to be pretty, but if you're going to go, at least have water nearby, Okay.
Paul McCrocklin. That's a new word. New name. Sorry. Could home of brown be Native Americans instead of bears, fish, or person?
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
I don't think so, but anything is possible.
That wouldn't be ours.
Yeah.
What's your take on specialized knowledge?
So, Forrest has said more than once you don't require specialized knowledge. The simple fact of the matter is that when the person that's making that statement is a former Air Force pilot who taught himself geography, some geology, Neolithic paleontology,
Archaeology,
anthropology, writing, etc., etc. So it strikes me as a bit bold to say that he gave us something that doesn't require, if not the ownership of specialized knowledge, the acquisition of specialized knowledge. I don't see how you could find this treasure without learning things as part of the adventure. And it strikes me that because of the way he made himself, Forrest Fenn, the self-made man, the fighter pilot self-made man, he did that as a result of what, to me, implies a life full of continuous learning. And so part of my adventure through life has, we're streaming to you today on a computer that's running OBS, Open Broadcasting Software. A month ago, I didn't know OBS existed, and we had a completely different model for presenting to you, but I went and learned it. I acquired this specialized knowledge necessary to do this, to achieve this goal. It strikes me that Forrest Fenn, a man who spent his life acquiring specialized groups of specialized knowledge, when he says it doesn't require specialized knowledge, I don't think he means that it doesn't require the acquisition of specialized knowledge. And I think that's the distinction. I don't see how you could do it otherwise, nor do I see how he couldn't expect you to increase the volume of adventure. So if all this was about was going out in the woods, that's one thing. If this is about going out in the woods with a brand spanking new set of new knowledge in order to do this, I mean, that's what I expect from him. That's what I expect for him to do, for him to do to us. And it has been an improvement on the adventure. Prior to Forrest Fenn, I didn't know. I grew up in Santa Fe. San Lazaro is 20 miles south of Santa Fe, if that. I didn't know it existed. I thought the Pueblos were the Pueblos, and that's all there was. So I've learned a great deal in the past 4, 5, 6 years, 5 years, that I didn't have before. I didn't know about survey tools. I had no idea that this is how survey worked. I read plats of property that I had purchased, and I assumed that the attorney who was conducting the transfer of the property knew what it was all needed to be about. So I think specialized knowledge as acquired is required. I don't think you have to know anything when you start with the poem, but I think if you get through this without acquiring specialized knowledge, you're a better person than me. And that's not him. He spent a lifetime learning, acquiring specialized knowledge. I'm getting redundant.
You are.
Thank you.
He also said an average person just needs the book and the poem. So average. What is average? Jen Kerb says, is a satellite phone worth getting when searching boots on the ground?
Good question. When I first went out, the first couple of years that I searched, I took one because I was going out alone, and I wanted to make sure that I was safe. I don't think so. I think it's a big expense, and I think you could do the same with an EPIRB. It's a lot less expensive, and you have the ability to set off a marker point if you wanted to be really safe. If I was going alone, then I would probably take an EPIRB. I think a satellite phone is a bit extreme. It's very expensive. They're not inexpensive. They're both physically expensive and the services are expensive. So I don't think you need it. You might be able. I think you can lease them now. So check into leasing a satellite phone. You will be in areas where you won't get cell phone service. So if you're dependent upon that connection to the world, then you could. But I don't see the need.
Joshua Wycombe. Do you know the route Forrest took from Santa Fe to Yellowstone every year with his family?
No, I don't. But he didn't travel from. So that's interesting.
Once he lived in Santa Fe?
Once he lived in Santa Fe.
He didn't go there every year.
So once he lived in Santa Fe with his current family, he didn't go to Yellowstone every year. He went to Yellowstone every year with his father's family. And they went from Temple, Texas. He wasn't born and raised in Santa Fe. He was born in Temple, Texas. Born and raised in Temple, Texas. And that's where they went to Yellowstone from. I imagine by the time he got to Santa Fe, they could afford other routes than driving.
Right. And he could fly his own plane.
Yeah.
So
he could fly. You could fly commercial, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think there's a driving route that he took necessarily from Santa Fe to Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm. I don't know that he visited very often.
Yeah.
Once he was an adult living in Santa Fe, he was pretty happy in Santa Fe.
We still think Yellowstone was his father's special place, not necessarily. I mean, he did have some grand times there, but as you grow up, what you want is the places that are special to you and your family. And he raised his family in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure they have places in New Mexico that are special to them.
I agree.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's be partners.
Okay. I think we're done.
Yeah, we better be done. It's
'Cause
coming
it's-
up on 3:00 here.
That's a couple hours of chit chat, and
Yeah.
we got more shows this week, so we don't want to wear you out.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't want to wear us out.
So,
We-
do we have anything that we need to say afterwards? We've already done the close, right?
So, yeah, just remind him tomorrow at 1 o'clock, Toby will be live to answer your questions about being liable if you find the treasure.
And Shelley's going to be joining us remotely, so she'll handle production responsibilities for that show tomorrow. And then we'll see you again tomorrow evening with
right.
Cynthia Meacham, which should be a lot of fun. We're looking
Yes.
forward to that. By the way, if you guys have any recommendations for people that you would like to see on our show, we've already had one. People keep recommending Bill Gorman.
And you're welcome to recommend Forrest Fenn, but he doesn't contact us back, so it's probably not going to happen.
So send an email to gypsieskiss@gmail.com and tell us about anyone you think you would like to see on our Wednesday night panel discussion, because we're going to keep doing more of those. I think I like the model that we're using right
Yeah,
now.
and we get to hear from other people. It's nice.
Yeah.
Change it up. And then, of course, Thursday is book club, and we'll be talking about chapter 6,
And drinking
My Spanish Toy Factory.
Sauvignon Blanc.
We're going to have some Love Block. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Sauv Blanc from New Zealand, right?
New Zealand, Marlborough.
New Zealand.
The Marlborough wine country.
That's right. Lovely stuff. And, of course, our usual Just the Facts on Friday. And back again next week. So thanks for watching today. Thanks for all your comments and questions, for participating in Super Chat. And if you didn't get to Super Chat with us today, make sure you check out our PayPal account, right?
Yeah, certainly. PayPal.me/agypsieskiss. So.
And do we have any closing screens? Or are we done?
No, we're done. We're going to leave it on.
Oh,
the
and
two of
thumbs
us.
up on that. Thumbs up, thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs
Don't forget
up.
to do a thumbs up for our show. We really appreciate it. And
Yeah.
YouTube likes it when you gives us a thumbs up.
Yeah.
So.
And if you're watching this on a replay and you want to see the accompanying chat, where do you look for it?
You're going to be, if you're on a desktop or a laptop, it'll be on the right side of the screen. Now, it's not going to be there immediately. YouTube takes X number of hours, depending on the length. It's going to take them 2 or 3 hours to process this show. Once it's processed, supposedly they've already done it on one of our videos. The video chat, the live chat replay will show up on the right side if you're on a desktop or a laptop, and below you'll have to drag it up from the bottom if you're on a mobile device. So,
Okay.
but it's there. I mean, it's migrated down to us. So,
Thanks so much for showing up today and spending time with us, and for all your great comments and questions. And for A Gypsy's Kiss, the vlog, I'm Shelley Carney.
and I'm Toby Eunice. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.